What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. And join me to do just that is Nate Tice. Nate, what's going on, buddy?
Not too much. You inspired me to plug in my sign, so we're matching. Well, yours says fantasy and mine says sports, but yes, we're still matching with Yahoo signs. But no, I am doing fantastic. Great to see you. Excited to talk some ball with you today.
No doubt. We have a big show here today, not just because we have an electric Thursday night football game to preview. We're actually going to save a good amount of time for that Thursday night preview. And because I think I go ahead and venture to say, without checking the facts here, always a good thing to do as a media bro. This is the best Thursday night game we've had all season long. It's the best one that we've previewed. It's for sure. It's the best.
Yes.
It's the best. Okay. Stakes are high. Two good teams. Yes. Loser leaves town type of matchup here. Yes. So we have a big Thursday night football game to preview later on. But before that, we're going to jump into the fantasy film room and we're going to talk about some offenses that we think will be better than expectations down the stretch. We're going to pick two good offenses, like top 15 verified offenses. And then we're going to pick two mid offenses that we think will be better than expectation. And I don't know about you, Nate, but I'm definitely I'm the dog returning to its vomit for these two teams that I picked. I just couldn't help myself.
Do you see the ones I have?
That would be fun to get into.
Yeah, even for me, I had to change it up. I had to switch mine when you guys will see at the tail end of this. But I had to switch mine because I was like, I feel like we do this every time. So let's change the dead horse and change the topic a little bit.
Yeah, that is certainly, we're going to be beating some dead horses today. And at the end of the show, Joel Smyth will join me for a little Buzz is Building. But before we get to any of that, we have some news to hit on here at the top. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are continuing to get some reinforcements. Adam Schefter reported today that the Buccaneers have opened the 21-day practice window for wide receivers Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan. They're eligible to be activated off injury reserve at any time during the 21-day window. Mike Evans was officially listed as a limited participant in practice with his collarbone injury. This is a big deal, Nate. Number one, because, hey, Jalen McMillan, you guys forgot about him? I definitely forgot about him at times this year. He is certainly a human being that could potentially help this offense, coming off a really serious neck injury, so we'll see what happens there. But, man, I think this team really, really needs Mike Evans, and it's just a reminder that at no point this year have we seen the Bucs as they were supposed to be. Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin didn't start the season, and then once those guys kind of got back, then Bucky Irving was gone, and then Mike Evans was gone, and it is on and on and on and on it goes, man. So we might actually get a fully stocked Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense here with, I think, the receiver core that they were originally planning to have at this point of the season.
All's well that ends well, apparently. Yeah, they're just sans a right guard, essentially, at this point in time. But at one point, they were missing, it felt like, every starter except for Baker Mayfield. I feel like every spot has had some shifting or some moving where it hasn't been the same face for all, 12, 13 weeks, I should say. But no, this is what you want to see. This is an offense that so many of us had optimism about. I think it was a consensus or unanimous top 10 offense, even higher for some people, because one, the strength of the offensive line, which has been slowly getting healthier and is finally more or less fully operational. The Cody Mock has been gone for a while now, but the Mike Evans thing is huge because when Chris Godwin has come back, which is of course a key component, he is definitely a half step slower. Just sure. Eye test anecdotally. That makes sense. I'm not shocked to put it that way. But Mike Evans though has been more of a, not to say I underrated him, but more with Baker and how Baker likes to play and attacking outside and giving his guys chances. That's where I'm like, oh yeah, you really do miss Mike Evans, as opposed to, the screen game has been knocked down. The screen game is less effective. I've talked about that a couple times on recent shows on Football 301, but I do think Mike Evans and that winning those isolated matchups, that's really what's been missing in this offense. There's a lot of guys that can run outbreakers. There's some fun stuff over the middle that they can do, but those vertical throws, that is what's been missing this offense. And that's the Mike Evans special. It's a safety net of some sorts especially for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I've been harping on this a lot. I just wrote a piece about this on both Rome Odunze and Emeka Egbuka, the two receivers who started so hot this year. And it's funny when you start breaking them down. Actually,
I swear they're good.
Yeah, well, no, I agree. They are neither. This slump that these two guys are in. It's not like they've done nothing, ever since. But
yeah,
it's definitely they've been in. It's just been very up and down. And Egbuka really has just the one game against the Patriots, whereas Odunze has two good games in here, but the zero catch game is between those two good games. So It's just like that's going to make it feel pretty bad. The floor has just been very low on him for a variety of different reasons, and we won't get into all those. You and I we talked the Bears to death, which has been nice because you forget, hey, when you talk Bears on your podcast, Bears Twitter is going to pick that bad boy up and they're going to circulate that thing
quickly.
We're going to do some numbers on yesterday's 301 episode.
We released the podcast, and I was already getting tagged. Like it felt like an hour later. I was like, how'd you even get to that point in the show already? But it just came out. So yeah, no. Bears Twitter. There's a fever right now, and they're excited to talk about their Bears right now.
we there's a fever, and we're happy to stoke the fire. We're happy to stoke the fever there. So but it's just, again, it's funny because both these guys have sort of similar reasons for the slump. For Egbuka specifically, again, this is a guy that was averaging 89 yards per game in the first 5 weeks of the season. Since then, 49 yards per game. And I think this sort of happens, right, Nate, where you get a receiver room that is super banged up, and it's the Egbuka, Sterling Shepard, Tez Johnson show. And for a while, it's like, well, look, they're getting away with it. And then as the weeks go on, there's diminishing returns here. And I think the biggest thing for me is that because the other two guys are 142-pound Tez Johnson and Sterling Shepard, a bajillion years into his career as a slot-only player, Egbuka has to basically play that X receiver position. And I think it's nice to see that he can win there. And his slot rate is actually only 21% the last 2 weeks with Chris Godwin, because he's also a slot player. Like, he doesn't really solve this problem for them. So I think it's nice to see that he can win there, but we probably don't want him there on a 75, 80% basis. And we now it's the receiver room that we should have originally had. Evans at X, Egbuka as the movement Z, and then Chris Godwin as that power slot. And I think that's sort of the best usage of all of these guys together.
It is. And I mean, the comparison I had even for Egbuka, and I think it's just a common, archetype, is Godwin as far as just what he can maybe become. And I think he's been a little bit different than even I envisioned. And mostly just because of everything you said is because he had to. It's because they're like, all right, I know Baker Mayfield and Sterling Shepard have the out-route chemistry going back for a decade now, but it's still like you need guys to run those in breakers. You need guys to win on the screens as well, because that's still a healthy part of this offense. So now just seeing more, he slots in, pun some intended, back into because I envision him as a Z that can move into as a power slot, just like Godwin. Godwin, though, has always been able to win as an isolated guy. You just don't want him to do it as the steady diet. You just want it just as a little part of it. Yeah. And that's, again, it's just the slotting into roles that makes sense. And on top of it, Bucky Irving being back, and you could feel the juice that he brought in the run game as well. It's just that it makes Baker not have to be so hero ballish and just when all these guys are getting back to the roles. Because now if you have Egbuka and an 80% Godwin back in their roles, then the stuff that beats zone is better because those two will work in conjunction with each other, with Mike Evans working in isolation. It just makes every answer easier. So zone is easier. Man coverage is easier. So it's just it makes them more matchup proof. And it is something I really want. I'm excited to see once Evans comes back, because I just want to know where the Bucs stand, because I really have no idea how to feel about them. It's like at times I feel real good about them. At times I feel lesser about them, and they just feel so inconsistent. It's like, maybe it's just Mike Evans. Maybe that's what has just been missing for this entire equation is just this guy. And that would make just so much more sense with the easy answers to it as well.
Yeah, it's not just the answers that he provides for Baker. It's slotting everybody else into the correct position and just how important he is into the offense. So I think it's going to be big to have him back, and anything that they can get from McMillan too, who I think is a nice move around player in his own right. I think that will really help as well. And honestly, I'm glad that we opened the show talking about them, because they almost sort of fit into this. They would have been the cheating answer to say that they were the mid offense that I'm excited to see down the stretch. They have a super easy schedule stretch, not just because they played the Panthers twice. Sharp Football Analysis has them as the easiest strength of schedule down the stretch. They played us twice. Unlike Carolina, who has to play Seattle at some point, the Dolphins in week 17. So there really is a good runway here to not just figure out who the Bucs are, as you mentioned, but also a good runway here to see, like, can this team put up some production from an offensive standpoint that we have not seen so far? Because that was something that, again, writing up this piece for Ibuka, I thought, like, the number one thing that you'll probably think between these two guys is that, one of them plays, with Caleb Williams and the Bears. The other one plays with Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. The Bucs have not been a good offense from a statistical perspective this year. They're 22nd in points per drive, 29th in success rate, 17th explosive play rate, and 18th in EPA per play. Like, I think I will take the over on all of those numbers.
Yes.
The rest of the way.
Yeah, not maybe to the top 5, maybe ceiling that you would think, but that just makes sense. Everybody's at different timelines and health and everything and chemistry. But it is a team that has played together. Like, Ibuka really is the only new face compared to last year when you're actually looking at this team. Right guard as well. But no, I'm totally with you. If you put the over under at 16 or 16 and a half, I'm taking the healthy over. Like, I think they are going to be a top 10 offense against a neutral schedule. And, I usually use DVOA for stuff. You had the sharp football stuff. But for FTN DVOA's metric, they have the second easiest offensive schedule left. So it's an easy schedule, and they're getting almost full strength. And I'm pretty excited to see what it becomes, but I do feel more optimism about it. I will say the run game has been the biggest kind of like drop off compared to last year.
Definitely.
That is where it's really missing. The screens as well in the pass game. I always bring that up, but it's just such a big part of their offense. That's why I keep bringing it up. But the screens is one thing, but the run game has just been, it went from awesome last year, a true, I would say, elite offensive run game, to, I would say, below average to even bad at times. So I'm excited to see even if they just get to above average, that's just going to make everything else so much easier. Again, Baker doesn't have to be hero ball. And when Baker can just play confident, pick and choose his explosive spots, then they start cooking. And when you're going against the second easiest schedule, like you might see some like real fireworks from this offense soon.
Yeah, and even that run game, again, it comes with the caveat that even when Bucky Irving was out there, to start the season, they didn't have Tristan Wirfs. And not only did they not have Tristan Wirfs, they had Graham Barton, their starting center, playing at left tackle, which is just diminishing returns across the line. So they really are a perfect kind of starter conversation for our discussion about offenses at the end of the season. So with that, let's get into it. Let's dive into this week's Fantasy Film Room. All right, welcome to the Fantasy Film Room presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season with another year of Toyota game day giveaways, from NFL shop gear to even Brock Purdy's favorite Sequoia. Toyota is giving fans a chance to win big. Visit toyota.com/NFL to learn more. All right, so for today's Film Room, as I've said, we're going to try to look at some offenses that we think will finish better than expectation down the stretch. We're going to start with two good offenses, one apiece here. Just these are universally accepted as good offense. I mean, everybody's got an argument for everything, but these are top 15 statistical offenses. Pick and choose whatever metrics you want. These are top 15 units. Nate, get us started here. Who are you expecting to be better than expectation down the stretch?
I was really trying to avoid, maybe mentioning this team because we are going to talk about them in a little bit anyways, because we always talk about Thursday Night Football, but it's the Cowboys. It's the Cowboys, which I think is kind of a chalky answer based on the talk about them, especially if you're playing on Thanksgiving. So I do have a secondary answer to this, like I usually do, because
can't
help myself. Yes, I can't. I cannot help myself. I really like this stuff, man. I just get cooped up in this office, plugging.
This guy loves football. He loves ball.
It's just because my wife is just like, just talk about somebody else. Like, I really don't care about how George Pickens was working and his route tree has synergy with Dak Prescott, Nate. It's just. Yeah, thank you. I know you do. I just everything you saw on Thanksgiving. I think anyone that watched that game, you see what George Pickens has brought to this offense, and everything just is again slotted in. Everybody's into their proper roles now. Again, there is just so much good in this offense. It's well structured, it's well constructed, it's well called, it's sound. Dak Prescott is playing excellent football. The offensive line is really coming along. Again, I have to obligatory mention of Clayton Adams, but it's just really everybody's developing exactly how you would hope, and that's what's been really cool when an entire unit's kind of playing, everyone's playing to their best. Now you're getting an emergence, and I'm glad we have him on the depth chart there of Malik Davis, which is just kind of like, it's nice to have just another valid back in this backfield that can take some good touches. I think Jadon Blue was a little frustrating with some of the stuff, but anyways, but also role players stepping up in this offense. Spain Ford, the tight end. So you're getting, when role players are just like in these proper spots and getting used exactly how they should be used. I know he scored a touchdown, but him as a blocking tight end, already one of the best blocking tight ends, it unlocks Ferguson. It unlocks new formation looks. Now other guys, the proper stars, can go in spots that let them be stars. It's just all making sense. So I think on DVOA, that's the metric I used. You said dealer's choice, so thank you. I also wanted one so everyone could just look, because EPA numbers are all different everywhere. So it's like, all right, here's one spot, FTN, DVOA. They're 7th right now, the Cowboys in DVOA and offensive DVOA. And I think they just keep climbing. Like, I just think it's just like all systems go from here. That's how I feel about this offense. I have a lot of confidence in them. Yeah, they'll have moments where Dak will maybe try too much because he pushes the ball. But really, they have a lot of answers. They are an offense that's built for the playoffs as well, which is so interesting. And then the defense now is going to keep them in games. Like, it's the defense is not a total, we'll talk about it. Defending the pass is not going to be great, but they can defend the run now, which I think it just makes it interesting about how they are structured right now. But I think this team will end up as a top 5 offense. I know I'm not breaking new ground here, but I think it's very, very legitimate how they're structured right now.
Yeah, I love that you mentioning some of these role players kind of stepping up. People know guys, like Jake Ferguson, and obviously the receivers are the receivers. And Javonte Williams has been a good find, even if he's kind of cooled off a little bit of like the crazy scoring to start the year. But even having like Malik Davis to cycle in here, when these role players step up, that's when it goes to like stabilize the offense here. And yeah, I mean, they're 5th in success rate. They're, I think, 4th in points per drive. Like, they're a great offense. And I think we're only going to like finding these little other answers instead of just haymaker to George Pickens, haymaker to CeeDee Lamb over and over again. Like, that's what makes them, honestly, they're a more intriguing team than the Bengals of last year, when the Bengals were the carnival team. And now the Cowboys aren't really that carnival team anymore. And I actually kind of like them playing in those scripts a little bit. The moment when I thought about, like, I don't know if I love them kind of constantly being in these negative game scripts, was that Cardinals game on Monday night where, they're chasing the Jacoby Brissett scam, the fantasy scam that he's running over there with all the dropbacks and all that stuff. And then you see Dak kind of get into some of those negative game script moments. That's when the mistakes can happen, and it can kind of get away from them a little bit. I actually like a much more controlling thing. So that defensive addition has actually, I think, been a little bit good for this offense.
Yeah, I think defenses that you want when you want to be a carnival team are the ones pretty good against the run, or at least good against the run. So they're forced to pass, and that leads to the explosive 45-42 games. Yeah. But it also leads to blowouts. If you are playing maybe a team that you can get on top of, because that's kind of like it's just like a press heavy offensive basketball where it's like, yeah, we're going to give up explosives, but we might get 2 picks out of it, because now it's just kind of all right, we can get a pass rush. You're forced to pass, just can kind of create some highs and lows going against maybe average-ish offenses. I'm saying not again, the best offenses probably torch this defense through the air. Which is why this Thursday night game is going to be, I'm so curious about how it unfolds because of where the lines are at. But that, I think, they're structured well, because nothing's worse than, oh my God, we have an amazing offense, but we're not getting the ball back for 7 minutes because the other team is just pounding the rock and we just can't get the ball back. Like, that is not conducive, I think, to like a good, even real football, but also fantasy wise as well. Like, it just more touches, more chances at it, like kind of making the defense more boom bust.
No, that's a really good point. Anything you want to say on your secondary team here?
Yeah, the 49ers. I might have just given a wrong stat, by the way, about the Bucs. Their defense the defenses they go against might be a little bit better than second worst. But anyways, we move on. 49ers, after their bye week, got a nice schedule and how they can go against, at least offensively. And I also just think that this offense is good, like really, really good. And it's the run game has dropped off a little bit, but there's still going to be usage there. It's the basis of this offense is all going to be that. I think Kyle Shanahan has done some really good things, like as far as just how he structures the offense. But I was looking, all right, they're playing the Titans, whose defense is very gettable, especially through the air. They allow a lot to the outside. Guess who throws a lot to the outside right now? Boom. There's a great matchup right there. So you got some receiver matchups. whoever is playing receiver for them. But I think that's just a defense that you can get game script wise and matches up well. Titans are really bad. They might have number one pick. I don't think I'm breaking new ground there. Colts, I think, are more gettable. Sauce Gardner might not be back at this point in time. I don't know what DeForest Buckner's situation is totally. I do need to research that. But these are, again, this is a very gettable defense. I don't think it's a bad defense, but for a team like the 49ers, they're going to have a lot of answers against a defense like that. Especially that wants to bring some blitzes on third down. Shanahan usually has some good answers, can lead to some explosives. Going against that might be a carnival game. 49ers defense, I liked a lot of the young players, but it's not a perfect defense right now. So, and then same with the Bears. Have no idea what to make of the Bears defense right now because they're getting healthier. I don't think they're going to be outright good, but they're not going to be one of the worst defenses like we've seen for 8-ish weeks, 10 weeks. They're, I think, more going to end up being more average-ish. So I'm curious about that, but I do think the 49ers still match up well against them because you can run on them, and also they are susceptible to explosives as well. So just a nice matchup kind of the rest of the way for their players, and I just think it's a real good offense, even if Purdy's just a little banged up right now. You can tell he's not 100% right now.
You could definitely tell. I think the lack of anticipation from him has been really glaring, which is almost like why he's throwing more of those throws to the outside, as you mentioned, because it takes his skill set, he needs to be so anticipatory if he's going to throw over the middle of the field. And they made him pay in the Carolina game on Monday night. That was really particular. Going back and watching that one, the J.C. Horn interception where he just sees it from all the way across the field because he's holding it, waiting for Pearsall to break open as opposed to throwing it before Pearsall breaks open, which is the classic Purdy throw. That was a real big telling point to me. So the bye, I think, comes at a right time for them, where I will say it's from a fantasy standpoint. Obviously, Pearsall is really difficult to trust because he's done just nothing since he's come back from injury from a statistical perspective. But do you have any hope that he can get going, someone beyond McCaffrey or Kittle can get going here?
Yeah, I think Jennings is always going to have his decent role where I think in fantasy terms, I think he's always just going to be a viable flex play. I really do. Purdy trusts him. The offense always has situations for him. Like he catches a lot on third down. So he's kind of the high floor guy of this offense. But I think Pearsall is going to have some great matchups coming up. Like Shanahan's even said it. He's like, this is a true X to me. And going against the Titans
which is surprising, I think, based on the prospect profile. But I mean,
he does
win. He does win out there. It's just not the role I probably anticipated him playing.
Same. I know. And Kyle Shanahan's very good at scout receivers, so I'm kind of probably one of the best ever. But no, I think going against the Titans, because the Titans are just such a juicy matchup for that. I really want to say, I looked it up and I was looking this up for a different reason. Is that they are second to last or last in throws to the outside as far in terms of success rate, in terms of explosives, just bottom 5. We'll just say that. So now you're going against a guy that's going to get targeted on the outside. Even outbreakers, they're really susceptible to them. The Jaguars had their way in breakers as well, dig routes as well. So, and this is an offense that loves running big dig routes to the outside. So I just think at least week 15, that's a smash spot for him. And then depending on how Sauce comes back, Travarius Ward's kind of been very up and down anyways for the Colts as the outside corner. So again, I think that's a good matchup. The Bears will see again, like Jalen Johnson's played well when he was out there, and then Kyler Gordon is good in the slot. So we'll just see how the Bears kind of matchup works out.
Yeah, I like that. It'll really take some stones to play Ricky Pearsall in week 15, but I have been thinking to myself that theoretically would be a good spot for him coming off the bye. We'll see if anyone's brave enough to do it. Okay. Sam Sherman, that's really funny. Okay, I'll give my offense here that we all agree is good, but I am really excited for how they finish this year, and that is the Green Bay Packers. And look, again, this is totally me, dog, returning to my vomit here, classic talking point over and over again. I really want to know what this receiver rotation looks like. Hey, I know, parody of myself here, but we know what the run game is. Josh Jacobs, when he's healthy, is going to be good. He's going to be the engine of that offense. Even when he's not 100% healthy, I kind of like what Emmanuel Wilson gives them. Definitely a guy that you need to hold on your benches just in case anything happens with Josh Jacobs down the stretch. The matchups for them here down the stretch, they got 2 games against the Bears, which, as we talked about yesterday, Nate, their offense theoretically, even if the Bears do get back on defense because of some of those linebacker injuries. Obviously, if they're healthier, that's great. But even still, I think that's an area where you can pick on this team. The Eagles could not show that in this last game because that's not what they attack ever, as we know. They've never heard of a crossing route. They've never heard of a slant route. They don't think they don't exist. So that is more of the basis of the Packers offense. Really interested about those two matchups. And just, I did really like how the offense felt when it was a narrowed down tree of just Romeo Doubs at X, Christian Watson as a perimeter receiver as well, and Dontavian Wicks as this kind of movement slot player for them. I love the way they're getting Wicks on these outbreakers. His usage this year, just even if it hasn't always been a fantasy factor, I don't know if you're ever going to see a game like we got from him on Thanksgiving again, but I think he has the potential to do it with how they're using him. Like, it's much more conducive to his skill set. And I think even when Reed gets back, he can kind of, in a weird way, replace the Tucker Kraft touches in this offense because he's going to run routes in the shallow area, and he's the best yak threat on the team outside of Kraft. So I think that it's just, again, will it turn back into this big rotation? Matt LaFleur was already talking about it today. Like, he can't wait to keep guys fresh. I'm like, I know you can. But I think from a matchup standpoint, it will be really interesting to discuss these players because I do think when Jordan Love is hot, like, this passing offense can be really dangerous. Yeah. And I think there's some spots down the stretch where some of these receivers can hit and help you as a flex play.
And what makes it, I think, even more annoying for fantasy purposes is that each week one of the guys has a better matchup. That it's not just an overall, oh, they're bad against the pass. So like the Bears, Kyler Gordon's coming back. We talked about it yesterday. He's one of the best slot defenders in the NFL, and kind of just, it turns to like its true weakness. Like, if he wasn't out there, I'd be like, oh my God, Jane Reed coming back one of these 2 weeks. Oh yeah, smash him. Oh my God, it's gonna be great. Now it's more like, well, we'll just see with Reed. I'll just see how he does, as opposed to like, I can't wait to get him back in my lineup. The guy that, like, in these matchups actually makes the most sense to me is Watson because of the deep speed. And just because has that vertical element to the game, and obviously they like doing it to him, like where they like throwing it deep to him. The touchdown against the Lions, but there's just other instances of it. But the Bears have had moments where they let up those big plays. Even the Broncos, poor Riley Moss, who I swear is good. He just has moments down the field where he just gets dunked on. He's actually good. He's one of the best corner twos in the game, but he just gets dunked on. It is what it is. The Broncos defense isn't the easiest matchup. It's going to be, they have a better football answer than a fantasy buy, if that makes sense. In real football terms, I like how the Packers are set up. Jordan Love might be the guy to get in that game, or one of the running backs if Josh Jacobs is healthy. He's the back because you can get the Broncos run game a little bit. But the thing is like, it's Patrick Surtain II, or whoever he's guarding is kind of like not who I want to be buying that week, especially with a non-ace. Slot wise, that's kind of the guy that you can kind of maybe pepper a little bit. So that might be the Reed week. But the thing is, when I say pepper a little bit, it's like the Broncos are like 11th against the slot. It's not like they're like 25th, so they're still like good against it. It's just, or above average, I would say. So it's not like the greatest week for them, but it's just, so it's just one of these things where it's like, you really have to find the particular matchup. I know I'm trying to help it out here a little bit, but I think Watson would be the guy, even if I like Dobbs too. Like, Watson makes a lot of sense to me against the Bears, just because of that vertical element.
Yeah, and they play a good amount of zone. I mean, they definitely mix some man in there as well, but they'll play some of that zone on the back end. And Watson, I think, has played well against zone this year. Like, he's run these big vertical routes down the football field. So I think that Watson in those Bears matchups, and then maybe potentially we look at some of those interior players against the Broncos if you're in desperate need. So we'll see what the rotation looks like this week, and then we'll continue to kind of judge this Packers offense.
We'll get Golden back in there. Just make it nice and easy.
I was
just get him back in there.
I was just thinking, like, we didn't even mention the guy that took in the first round this year.
I know.
Yeah. I don't know. That's looking tough right now at this point.
I know.
Not
late first, early second grade. See. Looks like that early second grade was kind of more.
That's exactly where I had him too. I had him in that.
Yeah.
Look at I love when we're talking about a guy. We show the projections here that Yahoo. Has.
I know.
1 catch, 1 target. Well, you know what? That's what we're talking about. Like, he's not really been a factor in the offense. And he's another guy that I'm like, I think he's good. I just don't know that he has like a fantasy friendly skill set. And I think that's going to end up getting, that's just tough when you take that guy in the first round, which is why never really liked the idea of like, oh, he's the number one in the class over McMillan. I thought that was kind of crazy. He was just not in that tier of prospect to me. He was late first, early second type player for me as well. And like, there's some players I have in that tier that I really liked. But I also had like Jalen Knoll in that tier, and he went in the third round. So it's just tough. So it's gonna happen when you run that 40 at the combine. But I'm not saying it's over for Matthew Golden. This room is going to be really, really interesting going forward because Dobbs is a free agent this year, and we'll see what the room looks like next year. It's going to be very, very interesting to track, and will be potentially a good environment for people to invest in the rest of the season. We are going to take our first quick break. When we come back, we're talking 2 mid offenses that we think might help you guys down the stretch. We'll get into that right after this. All right, we're back. We're continuing our discussion on offenses we think are going to exceed expectations down the stretch. We're transferring now into the mid offenses. These are not ones that everybody agrees are one of the best. So we're not talking about, the damn Packers and the Cowboys. We're talking some teams that might be a little bit worse off than that. So Nate, who is your mid offense that we think will be better than expectations down the stretch?
Matt, I wanted to talk about one of the teams that has been such an afterthought. And then, I don't know, I just keep seeing it go against other good teams and they lose, but their offense kind of keeps turning points, even with their backup veteran quarterback. And that's the Washington Commanders. And them, maybe it was just Terry coming back. What it was, I don't know. But the offense is still churning. The offense has been still like kind of doing things. Marcus Mariota has been a more than fine operator of this offense. When Mariota has been on the field, this offense is top 10 in EPA per play. They are 9th when he's been on the field. Yes. In EPA per dropback, when Mariota has been on the field, they are tied for 10th with the 49ers. They are an offense that's still churning because of his skill set. Because of the offensive ass. Cliff Kingsbury is the perfect quarterback for Mariota, and just what the offense can do. There's times it can be frustrating in real football ways, but also there's times where it can just keep doing good things. Like there's still production happening in this offense, and now you get Terry, who gets a lot of isolated opportunities that opens up things for everybody else. And I just think Mariota's actually just been good. Like I really just say it. Like it's not been a travesty watching him. He makes a couple mistakes. He always is just kind of like that. That's why he's a backup. But I do think it's more of a high functioning backup, maybe as Jacoby Brissett's been talked about a little bit in real football terms and fantasy football terms. And also has the rushing element. They're going to use him as a runner. So that helps him in fantasy as well. And then I just do think that Chris Rodriguez has kind of had a nice role in this offense, in this run game, which makes sense because he's a hammerhead. The offensive line's actually pretty good. And it's well schemed. The run game's well schemed. Kind of talked about that multiple points this year. But this is an offense that if you have players in it, whether it's Terry, whether you need Mariota because you have a week 14 bye week by Drake May, like your boy here, or if you have, from personal experience. Yeah, or if you're picking between like just a couple of guys, like I don't know, like Rodriguez is not like a bad, I wouldn't say dart throw. Like I'm sure he's on a lot of rosters at this point in time, but he is a guy that's like it's more valid rather than just like, oh, I guess I got to play him. It's like no, I think there's going to be production in this offense. And the Vikings, who they're playing this week, susceptible against the run, and so are the Giants, and so are the Eagles, and the Cowboys are much better. The Cowboys are actually like top 10 against the run now, so maybe not them, but the other 3 games. Those are juicy matchups for them, and matchups they match up well in those games too. So yeah, not the team I actually expected. I changed my answer on this, as we'll probably talk about as well. But the Commanders, yeah, it's more of a valid offense than I think people think.
And they have 2 games with the Eagles down the stretch. One of them is in week 18, so for most people that's not going to matter for fantasy. But and obviously we don't know when / if Jaden Daniels is going to return. So the Marcus Mariota of all of this is at least like worth discussing. And I think if Jaden Daniels is healthy, like he's going to get out there and he's going to play. Like he said it. Football players. He said once I'm healthy, I'm football
out there.
Players play football. Yeah, exactly. Joe Burrow's out there in a season that's over. So I will say though, couple things on Marcus Mariota. I mentioned that Eagles matchup, and I've been harping on this the last 2 weeks. Didn't really come to fruition with the Bears because their passing game didn't get going. But it's worth thinking about this week in their matchup. But they gave up the third most net yards per attempt versus play action this year. They give up the most yards per game to wide receivers lined up out wide on play action. Marcus Mariota has used play action on 32.7% of his dropbacks, which trails only Matthew Stafford and Daniel Jones. If it's Daniels is definitely less, but they've really leaned into that play action with Marcus Mariota, which is of course like some of it's the shotgun, Matthew Stafford
Flash
play
fake.
action versus Marcus Mariota it's all collected the same way, but still they could actually see some more like hard play action so will be really interesting. And I saw Hayden Winks tweet this out too. Like since 2024, Marcus Mariota is first in completion rate over expected, which is just one stat. Obviously, nobody's saying like Marcus Mariota is the best quarterback in the NFL, but he's turned into like a totally competent player, and he's a really good fit in this offense. And he will definitely be an interesting player to discuss in the offseason because there's going to be teams looking to replace their quarterback. There's not going to be enough quarterbacks out there. So like Vikings starting quarterback in 2026, Marcus Mariota, get ready, get your Photoshops ready now. So
Oh man. I don't know. The Vikings are one of the biggest. I know everyone's just laughing at them right now, but seriously, I'm so curious what unfolds in the next like 3-4 months for them because it's just oh my God, the locals. The locals are they are not too happy right now. Oh my god, you sold us this. No, but I agree with you because that high end backup, the former first round pick, that kind of thing. There's a narrative to it as well. Even if there wasn't on field ability there, people want to find their Darnold or the Daniel Jones. That's a real thing in the NFL. I know we joke about it, but it really is where people are like, "Well, it worked for them. Why not for us?" It's the Arrested Development meme. But
it worked for
really
these guys 2 years ago.
Yeah. What's funny was the first name that came to mind. I was like, oh, maybe the Steelers. And I'm like, oh, no, Arthur Smith. When Mariota left the team. Yeah, left the team. Yeah, I don't know about that. So, no, I'm just, you're looking at the screen grab there. That's the thing is, I've noticed this too. Sorry, now I'm getting all way off track. When I tweet about like a college prospect, like a college quarterback, whether it's Arch Manning or Lenore Sellers or Fernando Mendoza or anything, the screen grabs or the jersey swaps that I see, it's so funny how it changes from week to week. I think the Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jane Daniels draft was the best example of this.
That was
every week.
One.
It was, oh my God. Oh, and I just saw every single one. Every team had every single quarterback as their quarterback at one point. But no, I've seen about 14 Vikings ones about who would be their quarterback for next year too. So yes, anyways, Marcus Mariota has been fine. And I think Jane Daniels, he's been doing a good Jane Daniels impression. That's the best way I could put it. So I think overall they're 9th in success rate. Like no matter who's the starting quarterback there, it's still a good offensive ecosystem in the weirdest way, even if I'm not talking about the Commanders as a good ecosystem overall as a franchise at this moment. It's better, but yeah, it's a little rough there right now. They have some big questions on defense to answer.
Well, and you mentioned the Terry McLaurin thing, and I really think that cannot be overstated, what having him back in the lineup and looking like himself. And he wasn't even a full-time player last week, but he was targeted on like 40% of his routes. He ran fewer routes than Treylon Burks in that game. And shout out to Treylon Burks again for a crazy catch. But I mean, they tried to go back. They tried to go back to him in tight coverage over and over again a couple times. It was like, Marcus, that's enough. Stop. Like we did once. You got away with it once. You're not going to get away with it 3-4 more times. Okay. Like, but when they went to McLaurin, it was just a reminder of how important he is in not just for this team, but for this offense in particular, because there's just so much Mickey Mouse stuff in the Cliff Kingsbury offense that you need a perimeter, real deal number one wide receiver to actually take the thing to the next level. And you just felt his absence in games here. Cause even if Debo's given them a nice season, it's just, it's not the same. They've used him as like a slot only player. And this has been on my radar for months and months that they did nothing at the outside receiver position. We still get the Noah Brown updates, like enough already, but we still get the Noah Brown updates because on my radar. It's been on my radar forever. And yeah, thank you. I'm glad somebody's there. I decided to not tweet about it, but with McLaurin, it's just, he really brings a different element to the offense. And it's definitely interesting. Like this matchup against Minnesota this week, typically it's not the type that he would thrive against, because he really does, when they get into single high, they just smoke, McLaurin targets over and over again, because he's one-on-one in those situations.
Yep.
And Brian Flores plays so much of those like too high coverage shells. But even still, like on the quick hitters and the stop routes, he still should be able to find some space there. So I do really, this might be a tough one here this week against Minnesota, I think, with Marcus Mariota and these guys. But nevertheless, I actually do think the other three matchups here for the rest of the fantasy season, week 15, week 16, week 17, that's when you're really going to feel having McLaurin back out there. Like in a league where I'm competing to, I think I'm like 4th place right now. Terry McLaurin got dropped when he was hurt. I picked him up because my receiver room has gone from one of those like, oh, I had Roma Dunze, Garrett Wilson, and was feeling really good about that to start the season. And I ain't feeling Travis Hunter, not feeling so good about it now. Like I got Christian Watson, thank God. I picked up Terry McLaurin, and like I might start him every single week in some of these matchups now.
At least week 15 and 17 are prime for it. We'll talk some Cowboys stuff once we talk about that Thursday night football game, but it's like, especially outside targets, it's the vertical element that you, like you said the Mickey Mouse stuff. I think it's joking, but serious, where they attack underneath so much. The run game's good, but then so many screens, so many receiver screens that I think that just to win a go ball, like you need it. Like that's the thing that struggles with this offense. There is some tightness to it, especially over the middle. I don't think the safeties are threatened constantly enough, but I do think when you have Terry out there, you can still get some vertical explosive play elements to it. But also in the red zone, that's where you feel Terry the most too, because he can win on those contested catches as well. So I think Barnwell had the stat on it. Like when Terry was targeted last year in the red zone, I think it was either a 99 QBR or 100 QBR for Jane Daniels. So just a perfect QBR whenever he got targeted in the red zone. So like that's where you feel him too. Just kind of it pushes the offense over the top like a receiver should. Like he's the cherry on top to the offense. So
all right, I'll get into mine here. Houston Texans. We talked about them yesterday as a spoiler. Potentially, or at least they're going to make the AFC playoff race really interesting. Not even just a spoiler, like they might well get into the dance. But I did want to kind of expand on the offense here a little bit and why I think they might be a hidden source of some real fantasy value right now. I mean, number one, the schedule down the stretch, it's not like anything, oh my God, they're just got a bunch of pushovers, but they got the Chiefs this week. I actually think with the way they're playing offense right now and some of the way that they're using quick game, I think that like that's actually a pretty good matchup for them for what the Chiefs kind of struggle with defensively. Week 15 and 16, I mean, Cardinals, Raiders, those are going to be a bad defense in the Raiders that you can get over with from a receiver perspective. And in the passing, I think the Cardinals, I'm really interested to see what Jacoby Brissett looks like in the pocket against that Texans defense. That could be troubling. But still, the Cardinals are 3rd in neutral pass rate since Jacoby Brissett took over. Like they are just throwing the hell out of the football and increasing like the script and the pace of all of these games that they're in. So that I think will benefit the Houston Texans offensively. So again, there's a lot I think here from just a schedule perspective, but Nate, again, we kind of touched on this yesterday. I wanted to hear kind of some of your expanded thoughts on it. I think during the Davis Mills sort of moment, it felt like they also kind of came to terms with who they are offensively. They're not this like physical bully ball team, and they started to get like Jaden Higgins more involved in the ways and the deployment that I kind of wanted to see from him. Not as a pure slot. He's too big to be a pure, and too stiff, honestly, I think, to be a pure slot, but he's got like the smoothness to him to be an off-ball receiver when he builds up speed. That, I think, is how they've really expressed some of his best stuff, and a bunch of his touchdowns have actually come when lined up as a slot receiver. I think they've gotten Nico Collins on more of these quick hitters, and the offensive line improvement obviously has been, as we talked about yesterday, the ageless and yet actually not that old Trent Brown playing right tackle has been a big deal for them. So I like a lot of what we've seen from Houston right now, and I think they could be a team that went from one of the most annoying teams at the beginning of the season to actually really helpful for you down the stretch.
I feel like they're perfectly average now, and I mean that as the biggest compliment ever, because I thought they were a train wreck for a good month or two of the season. We talked about this yesterday, but I'll reiterate the stats here. Since they've reconfigured their offensive line, so this is when Davis Mills took over, of course. So that's just how the timing happens sometimes, and then including this last game with C.J. Stroud. And I do think my aside is that I think C.J. Stroud played. He was shaky to start, had a couple sprays, had a couple of too aggressive moments. Yeah. But I would say for 3 quarters played real well, especially on third down. Made me really excited of this. I'm glad you brought up the Texans. Like I was hoping that we would talk about them in some way, because one, I'm trying to just figure out that division race, but I just feel so good about this team because of the defense. But now the offense being viable is so huge. But since they made these changes where Trent Brown's our right tackle and they kind of just slotted everybody else where they should, where they're now final resting spots, I guess. So that's week 10, the last 4 games, 15th in success rate, 15th in EPA per play, 7th in rushing success rate. Their passing game, because Stroud's actually been real good against the blitz, which makes this really interesting going against Spags this week in the Chiefs. But I do think that we talked about it yesterday. So it feels like deja vu, but it's more quick hitters. It's more Stroud, they're spreading and shredding. They're letting Stroud kind of be that pristine operator that like I think he can be when he's really rolling. And because they have the receiving talent to do it, and the offensive line is just okay enough, especially with Woody Marks in there too at running back. Like they just have enough to let it kind of like you can see the offense breathing a little bit. I think third downs is the best example of that, where it doesn't feel like a 3rd and 7's like just a lost cause now. And it feels like they're getting in less 3rd and long situations. It's just it's a better ecosystem. I know we use that term all the time, but it's properly applies here. Like really does for the Texans, where everybody's just breathing and doing everything's just slotted into the right roles. Everybody's asked to do the right things. And now they have depth, tight end, receiver, running back, O-line a little bit. I don't know. It's just feeling a much better overall in real football terms, but also just fantasy as well, just because this is more viable because the offensive line is more viable.
Yeah, and they have the big rotation at wide receiver that, typically it's like, what are we doing here? Why are we rotating all of our guys? But they're rotating the number 2, the number 3, and the number 4 spot as opposed to also rotating the 1. It's just like, yeah, the Bills rotating all these guys. That's like, what are we doing here? The Packers sometimes rotating all the guys. What are we doing here? But when you have a Nico Collins as the center of your universe and everything orbits around him, it can feel really good when Nico, I think, has been a little bit more maximized in the ways that they're, having him run some of those quick hitters. That was my frustration with Nick Caley at the beginning of the season. That's the thing. I don't think they accepted it. I don't think they knew, but you don't have a good offensive line. You don't really have a good buttoned up protection plan yet, because your quarterback is handling that stuff for the first time of his career, as we heard and talked about all offseason. And yet you're having your number 1 X receiver run all these big downfield, long developing routes. And then your number 2 and 3 receivers is like Braxton Berrios and Xavier Hutchinson, which they're role players. You don't have a guy like Jaden Higgins who can unlock pretty quickly and smoothly on some of those stop routes when it's a pressure look.
Yeah.
And Stroud can identify that. That I think has been what Higgins has been best at, and like a pleasant surprise to me is I think he runs those quick stop routes pretty well, and it's just an outlet throw there. So again, I think they've just come to terms with who they are, and Collins in particular can be one of those guys that started really slow and people are complaining about him and blah, blah, blah. And then I think he's still a top 10 receiver in points per game, but like I think he could end up finishing the season as a top 5 guy the rest of the way with the way the offense looks right now.
Like you said, it's just every offensive or not every play for them in like high leverage situations, like 3rd down, everything. Nico Collins is technically the primary. Like if you just had to draw it up, he's the 1. But depending on coverage, things change. Who ends up being the 1 and everything, and how progressions work. But I just love that how you put it. It's like, no, he is definitely the alpha still. But it's so cool how they're using Higgins. I'm still higher on Noel. Like I should say higher. I was higher on Noel in the draft process, but I'm seeing kind of like how they're using Higgins. I really like it. I'm glad you mentioned it, like with the stop routes, even routes that are breaking over the middle, like crossing routes and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Just using his size, and just like he's not going to be a big yak guy. But the fact that he can just body up and catch him and then just get down, it's really making him just more useful than maybe I thought he would be. And I like that. I maybe thought he would be a little bit more linear with his stuff. So the fact that he can win on those routes too, I don't know. I'm not saying like, oh my God, he's going to be amazing, but I'm just saying like, okay, you're a little more useful.
But he's a hit to some degree. I think that's the thing that's been really nice to see about Higgins. Like I think he's a hit to some degree, and then we'll see here. Like he's not a bust for this team. He's very much a hit for them. And this is the tough part about when you're scouting for all 32 teams. And I made the comparison when I did the recap when they played the Bills. It's just was so stark. Obviously, Keon Coleman, that was a game he was a healthy scratch for, and it's just like that's a guy who needed the right role. And I mean, there's a lot going on with Keon Coleman, but just hypothetically, like as just a player, he's a guy that needed the right type of deployment, and there was a way that he could go to a team and be just completely flame out because he's not used in the proper way, and we saw that happen again amongst many things in Buffalo. And then a guy like Higgins, I think, had the same sort of worries. Like had he gone to a team where he has to be the number one X receiver and a team over, like that, he could have flamed out in that way too. But I mean, I even said this when, as a guy that we both were a little bit lower on Higgins than maybe guys like Noel and some of the others. But I think we said on draft night, like as soon as he goes to the Texans, oh, well, he's never going to have to play a snap at a significant amount of snap at X receiver because they got this guy that we're showing on the screen right now, Nico Collins. So yeah, I don't know if Higgins is ever going to be like at least as a rookie, an every week consistent fantasy starter, but I think he helps the offense just move the ball here for guys like Stroud and playing Woody Marks at running back and everything. I think that's been a big sort of boost there. Anything you want to say on your one team, your other team real quickly, because I know you got to scratch this itch any chance you can get before we go to break.
It was the Jaguars, but it's like we always just talk about the Jaguars, but really it was just a continuation of what we talked about yesterday. It's just that it's all Jacoby Myers cannot his presence there can't be like talked about enough, and just how it helps out the offense. I think he's a very valid guy he's been great as a receiver too for me. But of like in fantasy terms as well, just like he's valid to start if you need him. And also BTJ gets kind of a nice role. I'm curious how they kind of now they're understanding how everybody works together, especially now we got Strange back in there. But I was just going to say the Jaguars offense overall, like the offensive line still gives me some worries. They have Wyatt Millam starting now, I think at guard, and I'm curious how that goes. I liked him, but didn't really love him in the draft, and he was a tackle at West Virginia. But maybe he gives them a boost, and maybe you just find this sometimes happens. Guys all of a sudden have to start, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this guy's better than the guy we had. This is great. So we'll see with that. That's still the biggest worry I have with them. But I do think that all the guys that you have, they're very playable right now. Pending some matchups. That they have, but I'm feeling so much just better about this team. It's all just because of Jacoby freaking Myers, which is just the funniest thing. But the Colts are a valid team to go against. Jets, valid team to go against. Okay, then the Broncos, not so much. But you got the Colts again after that, and I think just the Colts are more average-ish on defense, especially against the pass. So yeah, I don't know. I just the Jaguars are just it's kind of feeling a little bit better than maybe just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Myers has been huge, as we talked about yesterday. 2.59 yards per route against zone coverage, which, again, that was a big problem for them. Going over the middle, zone coverage, dropping the football. 10 games, not 10 games, but since week 10, 2.59 yards per route against zone. It's been a nice breath of fresh air in a receiver room that definitely needed it there for Jacksonville. All right, we are going to take a quick break. We come back. We've got a big Thursday night game to preview. We're going to get into that right after this. All right, we're back. As we've been saying the whole dang show here, we got a big Thursday night football game here. We got Cowboys at Lions. Lions are 3-point home favorites. It's a 54.5 point total. It is the highest of the week 14 slate right now. Yeah, I mean, this should be some points. I'm not advising any under bets in this particular game. So Nate, I'm going to just give you the floor here.
Okay.
What do you want to highlight? Because there's a lot of places to go with this game.
Yeah, it's just kind of like you have to the mini seasons of the season kind of thing. I think for both of these teams, I think the Cowboys' run defense has turned from a true laughing stock, like truly one of the worst run defenses I've seen in some time, is now good, outright good since they added Quinnen Williams. Mm-hmm. Everybody else has kind of just moved into the right spots. I do think though they're extremely, extremely susceptible to passing, especially to the outside, which makes sense if you look at their team and their roster. They've been starting to play Siobhan Ravel a little bit too, but he's a rookie corner and still just working into it. But the Cowboys right now to the outside targets or any position, just outside targets, 31st in EPA per pass, negative 0.60. So I should say 0.60 EPA allowed per pass attempt to the outside on 153 pass attempts. 0.60 EPA allowed on 153 pass attempts. That is unbelievably high. You don't even need to know reference. That's a lot. That's more than a half a point per pass attempt to the outside because they just get burned. To the yards per game, 129.2 yards per game to the outside. If you like your more box score stats, dead last in the NFL. 10.1 yards per pass attempt to the outside. And then success rate wise, they allow a 57.5% success rate to targets to the outside. Only the Titans and the Commanders were worse. See, I knew I had a Titan stat in there.
Yeah.
But I bring that all in the weirdest way, though. I feel better about the Cowboys right now than I do the Lions, just as in a real football sense, just of where their offense is at, what the strength of the defense is. I have liked the Lions defense. I think they've just been getting got the last couple of weeks. I still think they're a little bit better than what they've shown, but it has been battered, especially on the back end. And they just kind of just have, and they play a certain style that's high risk, especially with all the injuries that they have. And so I do think there's going to be a lot of points in this game. I'm excited to see props wise. I liked Lions props because I can just kind of picture how that side of the ball goes. While I think the Cowboys, I'm more curious as a football analyst, football fan, what Schottenheimer and Clayton Adams think is the best way to go against that defense. That's why props wise, I'm kind of shying away from that side of the ball. But I do like the Cowboys overall more in this game, the weirdest way.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but I feel so much better about just their identity right now as a team, especially, the injuries on defense is just tough for Detroit, because I do think their defense has played really well over the course of the season, and they are still like a physical, tough group. And if Dak, isn't perfect going over the middle, like he could get got at some point here, which would be, that would be a potential turning point for Detroit in this game. But just I'll get into it in a second, but I think Dallas matches up really well with that secondary in particular. But with the Lions, it's just, again, it comes back to the identity of their team. We talked about it yesterday, but that run game, Nate, like why has their run game not been as, I mean, they've had like explosives with Jahmyr Gibbs, right?
Yeah.
Like he's had these monster games, but at the same time, then their rushing output as a team, it doesn't feel as overwhelming as it once did.
Yeah, everything, and we talked about this yesterday, is that everything on their offense, or their main diets of their offense, have turned from absolutely elite, some of the best you'll ever see, to more average to above average, not outright bad. And so that's where people are like, what's wrong with this offense? Because it's not like, I mean, I think they scored the second or third most points on offense this year. So it's not like one of these things where it's like, man, this feels awful. It's just like, it doesn't feel right. Is when those easy buttons don't become as easy. And for the Lions, it was pound the frickin' rock in between the tackles. Whenever it gets hard for us, we can run it for 5 yards whenever we want. And that's a real strength to have in the NFL, especially at any level of football, but especially in the NFL. And then the screen game as well has dropped off as well. And again, there's just the tie-ins where those are the main parts of this offense. Those things are just not as venomous. And I think that just has led to more volatility with the offense. And it's because the interior of the offensive line was already taking a step back with Frank Ragnar retiring, but now has faced injuries. And the Penei Sewell is still good. And then on the left side, Decker has been facing injuries as well. So that is the true, and we talked about this, again, deja vu moment, but it's when you take the true strength of the team and you just make it pretty good, that matters. Because this is the entire basis of this team. The offense was the offensive line, was pounding the rock, was getting these quick hitters to guys. And now that is just pretty good as opposed to awesome. And that has kind of just made the offense feel just a little tougher this year.
And we're showing the stat on the screen right now that David Montgomery hasn't had like 30% of the team's carries or whatever it was, that like he hasn't been involved this year. And I think it's because, it is. David Montgomery hasn't seen over 30% of the Lions' designed carries since week 10, only played over 50% of the snaps once since in the past 7 weeks. His lack of involvement to me isn't really like, I think David Montgomery looks worse this year or anything. Nope. It's just, they know they need those monster explosives.
Yes.
Like they don't have the team to just be like,
right there,
David, we're putting the ball in your hands. And like you said, we're getting 5-6 yards every single time because we know that we just have that. And that obviously is an offensive line personnel issue. And I hate to say it, I know Lions fans that got like weird with Ben Johnson, the way he left and he's in a divisional team and they're currently in the first division. Yeah. But a lot of the things that you would think like, hey, you're losing the best play caller in the NFL potentially, and a guy that just had such a good pulse of how to use everybody on this. It just, you feel the lack of Ben Johnson on this team. I mean, that shouldn't be a hot take. They demoted the play caller at some point this year. Like Dan Campbell put himself there. That's not a shock. Like we all know that's a problem. But specifically, like with the way that it's been tough to get Jameson Williams rolling at times. Like he's had these 0 catch games. I'd bet quite a lot of money he'd never have a 0 catch game with Ben Johnson there, just with the way that, he knew by the end of his tenure how to use Jameson Williams. Now I think Jameson Williams in this game is basically going to be all they have.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have a,
My
I have
props in there.
yeah, of course. I have a fascination with Isaac Tesla, and I think he's flashed, but is he ready to be like a consistent part of this offense? I don't know about that. He's a project player. So if we don't have St. Brown in this game, and like it seems like we won't, what do we expect of these receivers?
Was it Gibbs? Who had the screen touchdown? Was it Jameson Williams against the Bears last week or the Packers last week, where they broke the tackle and then they ran in for the touchdown? On that play, Isaac Tesla misses the block. And Tesla is the perfect encapsulation of what's going on with the Lions offense. He misses the block. That play should have been blown up. And that's, again, was a receiver screen, which is what's been worse this year. It's because of little things like that. And then but he makes the big play and it's great and gets the touchdown and he has so much ability, but it's not as detailed. It's not as kind of efficient. Yeah. It's not as like he's always going to, but that's to be expected. That's why he went where he went. But no, if you just want to look, I just was breaking it down as you're talking. Sorry. If anyone ever curious, if I'm looking to my left, I have a monitor over here. But per game, the Lions are averaging 3 or 4 fewer successful runs per game. And again, those add up over time. But when those are 4 times that you're now able to go like, okay, here's 5 yards. Okay, here's 6 yards. And then same thing with the screens. That's a half dozen, 7, 8 plays. You run 60 plays on offense, give or take 55 to 65 plays. 10% of your plays are now just getting dropped off. That's what leads to kind of these moments. But if you want me to jump into props, I'm just banging on everything with the Lions offense right now. But I'm excited about the Cowboys too and the Cowboys offense. This is going to be a fun matchup. The Haas fight, the Lions D-line, Cowboys offensive line is going to be an absolute fist fight. So get ready for that. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very, very fun. But I mentioned this. So that's why I kind of a little low on Javonte Williams, maybe a little bit because of the run defense. But I like George Pickens' ladders. That's how I put it. I didn't put anyone in there. But just however far you want to go with George Pickens in this game, I think he's the better. I think CD will still have his moments, obviously. But if I had to bet on one, it'd be Pickens because of just what you can get on the outside, injuries, all that stuff, the matchup, single high stuff, all the man stuff, everything. I was
going to say, and Lions play single high at 69% since week 8.
Thank you.
I feel like I've mentioned single high teams a bajillion times on this show so far, but Lions play single high coverage 69%. That's even since week 8. That's again since they've been injured, they've leaned into it almost more because I think they're trying to create some of that chaos there. Kelvin Shepard, I think, a lot of cover 3, and I think Kelvin Shepard actually has a pretty good finger on the pulse of like what I need to do to create some chaos, even as there's.
That's
been
why
injuries.
A couple of weeks ago I was like, he's actually elite. I'm telling you guys, he's elite, and they just get friggin' battered. But I swear,
kind of what happened to
them.
It happened to them last year, and then they just get into these berserk game scripts. So again, those single high moments, and then obviously, George Pickens just yards per route against single coverage 3.87 this year among like high volume receivers that trails only Puka Nacua who is at an obnoxious 4.4. It's just it's a good spot for George Pickens for sure.
Yeah, and even with it's not just because I'm saying like it's going to be a bad game for him. It's also that the Lions against slot, where CD thrives in, they're pretty good against the slot because they'll put Branch there. They have answers. The cover 3 stuff can do that against the slot. So I think it's just, that's why I prefer Pickens as well. So ladders is how I put it. But on the flip side, I mean, just because the Cowboys to outside receivers, to outside targets, I have Jameson Williams 100 yards or more for a plus 145. Over longest reception, 27.5 at minus 120. I think Jameson Williams, and also maybe just how the game script goes, but I think he'll be able to eat a little bit, whether it's dig routes, whether it's just go balls, even though Goff doesn't really throw those. I think even over routes they can get them, it's kind of those like little motion things where they'll put them in motion and get them across. I think Jameson Williams, and like you mentioned at the top of the show or top of the segment, who else they got? So it's kind of that's where I think that Williams will be able to get a lot of this. Also, again, game script, also thinking that the run defense is going to be a little bit better than people realize. Jared Goff over 22.5 completions, just because a lot of zone, can see him peppering a lot of stuff underneath, a lot of stuff just where pressure in his face, pressure in his grill, and he has to check it down real quick because of the interior pressure, the interior weakness of the Lions offensive line. That's the strength now of the Cowboys defense. So I think Goff over 22.5 completions is the way I'd go. And then Goff over a half interception. Same theory. Pressure in his face. Throws one, batted, blah, 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 chaos pick. Kind of the thing where, I know. I could just kind of, I think Goff is going to get some big chunk plays in this game. I think you can do that against the Cowboys, but there's going to be some moments where it's like 3 and out because of pressure, or stuffed run, bad screen, pressure in his face. That's a 3 and out. So I think the Lions are going to get points, but it's going to be an up and down type of day against the Cowboys. And then that's all I got. Can't tell. I'm pretty geeked up for this game because like you said, it's a loser leaves town match. Whoever wins has I would say driver's seat, but a good path to the playoffs, and whoever loses is more or less out. 1 in 6 chance of making the playoffs, which is not exactly really good.
Yeah, Cowboys win this game matters a lot. They jump up to a 42% chance according to The Athletic. If the Lions, on the flip side of it, if they lose this game, they drop down to 12%. So, it's basically, it's do or die pretty much for both of these teams. Like, the Cowboys want to continue on the run. We got to go ahead here. And then the Lions, they get to play. If they lose this game, they drop down to 12%. Then they play the Rams next week. So, not fun. Not fun.
No.
Next 2 weeks here for the Detroit Lions. It's definitely tough. My last prop that I would just mention here real quick, like Jahmyr Gibbs, it's minus 130. So you're giving up a lot there, but over 4.5 catches. I just think he's going to, if Amon-Ra St. Brown does not play, and that feeds into your Jared Goff completions one, which I love going for the completions instead of for the yards, because I think there's going to be a lot of dump offs to Gibbs here, getting out of pressure situations, even maybe using him as an actual motion out, get into the route as the slot guy, because I don't know, Tom Kennedy, not really moving the needle as the slot receiver for me. St. Brown, obviously, if he's not there, that's going to be huge. Isaac Tesla, they mostly use as a perimeter player, which is, it's like an inspired idea. But again, I think it's a long-term idea. I'm open to him being a big part of the passing game in 26 and beyond. It's just the plan was not Isaac Tesla running as many routes as Jamison Williams in the Thanksgiving game. And that's what we got because of the injury.
Yeah, he's plus 200 anytime TD scorer. I did look that up for you. I deleted it off the doc, but I did look it up.
Got to do it.
So if you want, we'll sprinkle there. We'll Tesla sprinkle there.
Listen, folks, we're not professional gamblers. We're not giving you betting advice here. But if you want to just have a little bit of fun, that's it. You got. I know times are tough.
Hop on Twitter.
Yeah, throw a buck at it. Throw a buck at it. Throw $3 at it. Don't skip your. No, you could probably drink a little bit less, whoever you are. Okay, just skip your next beer and beer's like $10, bro. You throw $5 at the anytime touchdown for Isaac Tesla. I mean, come on, inflation. It's tough. Anyways, Nate, who wins this game before we get to break? Who do you think wins? You going Cowboys?
I am going Cowboys. The Lions are favored by 3. I think it's going to be a fantastic game, but at the very least, I do think Cowboys cover. I'll put it that way. But I am going to go Cowboys here, even if they're not a complete team yet.
I like it. I think I'm with you there. I'm also going Cowboys here. What could possibly go wrong? All right, Nate. Appreciate you, buddy. This was great. What are you working on writing this week?
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm writing on Cam Ward. Writing about him. If a franchise QB quarterback falls down in the forest and no one's around to hear it, did it actually happen?
Nate Tice is writing about it.
Trying to figure it out. There's been some bad ball I've watched in those 5 games I've studied. There has been some bad football.
God bless you. Yeah. I specifically said to Nate, we're doing good offenses and mid offenses just so he wouldn't come on the show and talk about the Tennessee Titans because I knew he had that loaded in the chamber. So make sure you read that piece, though, because I tell you what, people, there are going to be some Cam Ward fights on the internet this offseason. So read Nate's piece now so that you're prepared for the Cam Ward wars. So very excited to check that out, Nate. Appreciate you as always. Everybody, make sure you're following Nate. Make sure you subscribe to Football 301 and you come back here next week to hear us on the Fantasy Film Room. We are going to go to a quick break. When we come back, Joel Smith joins the show for Buzz is Building heading into week 14. We'll get into that right after this. All right, we're back, and he's back. Joel Smith joins us after a week off last week with Thanksgiving. Joel is back for a little bit of Buzz is Building. This is where we sit down with Joel every Wednesday. Joins us for the last block of the show to provide 5 players with some buzz that you need to keep an eye on heading into each given week. Joel, week 14, buddy, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing? Happy to be here again. I will say, just to hype up the show for a second, I don't know if you remember the last time we were on, we talked about Jackson Dart, his designed runs, how we were kind of worried with Dable. Now out of the building, he was number one in everything, 45% of his points on the design runs. Yesterday, or this weekend, he had 0 design runs. So that's why you listen. Hear stats like that.
See, that is why you listen to Joel and when we do this, because I'm telling you, man, people did not want to hear it. They did not want to hear that, like, yeah, that's where all the Jackson Dart fantasy points were coming. And there's just no way. I don't know. Joel, I'll tell you what. I thought like Mike Kafka had a chance here to establish himself as maybe an actual candidate for this job, potentially. He could actually be the head coach here. It seems like the two things he's trying to do is, one, do everything that he can do to prevent Jackson Dart, who's going to try to get himself obliterated anyways. That's going to happen as a scrambler. He's got to just make sure he doesn't do that. Make sure Mike Kafka's not a part of it. And 2, just run out the clock on the season. So I don't know. I'm definitely nervous about the Jackson Dart stuff after Monday night. I hope I'm overreacting, but I am nervous because of all those points that you brought up.
Yeah, we'll see. Kafka's not really in the greatest spot. They're out of playoff contention, rookie quarterback that they don't want to get hurt. So not the greatest spot for him.
No, definitely not. All right, let's get into the players that we're talking about this week. Start us off with your first player where we've got some buzz building.
Yeah, we're just going with Tampa Bay passing attack in general. Like everybody asks every single week about Ibuka. When is he bouncing back? Now you add in Chris Godwin. Tez Johnson plays like 50% of the snaps with Godwin back. Now Mike Evans is coming back. So what's going to happen? Everything. The main issue, I don't love what the main issue is because I feel like they could contribute all together. Like we saw week 1 to 3 with Evans and Ibuka both getting decent volume. Evans only had that 1 touchdown, so lower points per game. But obviously Ibuka, that started those first 3 games with Evans, he was awesome. But the main difference now is just Baker and the quarterback play in general hasn't been the greatest. It's been a big fall off compared to 2024 and just the start of this year. A lot of that, I think, just because of the injuries. I don't know how much is going to change, but just some stats to prove it. Ibuka, since week 7, his catchable target rate is the worst in the NFL. Dead last, 51%. It was at 86% to start the year. His catch rate on throws that aren't like screens, 5 yards or farther thrown downfield, at 34%, also last since week 7. So does the accuracy, all the off-target throws, all that sort of stuff, that's just what not helping. It's just the passing tech in general on top of these new guys coming in.
Yeah, I'm glad that you took out the screens part of it because it really is funny. Like I keep bringing this piece up because number one, we're reading again 2025. Go read the piece on the site. But I was talking about the slumps of Roma Dunze and Emeka Egbuka, and it is funny how both those guys have this abysmal catch rate. And it's like, what's going on here? And it's the reasons are actually the same for both players where the quarterback is missing them a little bit. And also they've dropped some catchable passes here too. Both of those guys as well. And it's just, again, that's how you get to a catch rate that's like in the 30% or 40% that we're talking about here. And you wouldn't think that Baker is that guy. Like Caleb, we know is not a consistently accurate quarterback, but even you highlighted it since week 7 on the season, according to Fantasy Points data, his catchable target rate of Emeka Egbuka is sandwiched between guys among players that have 50 plus targets, sandwiched between Jerry Jeudy and Jordan Addison. And like we're talking about the Browns bros and JJ McCarthy and the Brosmer over there in the Minnesota. Like that's not what we want. So I posed this to Nate at the top when we talked news, Joel. I do think that getting Mike Evans back and getting somewhere closer to the offense that this was supposed to be, they've really just not had everybody healthy at any point altogether all year. Can that actually smooth things out from an operational perspective and alignment perspective to maybe make Baker a little bit better and kind of get Egbuka into some of the spots that he needs to be as opposed to just running out as the X all the time?
Yeah, and I think it'll get a little bit better, but I'm not expecting like that huge bounce back with Evans. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are on Mike Evans as a player coming back from the injury. I don't know if he'll be back this week, but it's going to happen soon. But that's my main where like you bring up the catch rate with compared to the other guys like Addison and Jeudy. We're not counting on them, and they're the only receivers. Or Addison has Jefferson, obviously, but Judy's all alone. We can't count him at all.
No, yeah, I think it might help a little bit. And again, just to get Mike Evans back in his very specific and singular role. I think that helps the passing game for sure. And the matchups are pretty good down the stretch as well. So I'm open to being optimistic about this Bucs offense down the stretch. I actually will take the counter view here and say that Mike Evans coming back actually helps this entire unit. But we'll see. Obviously, he might be back this week. He might be back next week. We don't know if he's going to be at 100%. And shoot, we were excited to get him back earlier this season, and then he was out immediately right away again. So we will see how that one plays out. Let's get to your next one here, sticking kind of on the veteran receiver theme.
Yeah, a little bit better. Trending in the opposite way, trending up, I would say, is Terry McLaurin. My first thought after that Monday Night Football game was he had 14 targets, overtime game, that sort of thing. It's like, they had 50 passing attempts. The volume isn't going to be that great week to week. But then I looked at it. Mariota hasn't had a game over 30 passing attempts. So 50 was obviously the outlier, but McLaurin was on a snap count. So his targets per route was actually 42%. So he only played 50% of the snaps. So he wasn't out there for a lot of those 50 passing attempts. But when he was out there, that volume was incredible. The 3 games with Mariota this year, 13.6 points per game, so hasn't been bad at all. And then Jaden Daniels potentially coming back. And McLaurin is not really a guy that you need a ton of volume. Like last year, when he was amazing, 6.8 targets per game. He had a ton of touchdowns, which obviously helps, but he can be useful as a 7 target per game guy. So Vikings this week, not the greatest play in the world, but that Vikings defense has gotten a lot worse. When we're comparing the first half of the year to the second half of the year, that passing defense, they've dropped off the most in the NFL in terms of their pass EPA.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I mean, and it makes sense too. They're just in such horrible game scripts all the time too. Like you're gonna get dunked on consistently on the defensive side of it because you're out there all the time. You're the like time of possession's got to be crazy in favor of Minnesota's opponents as opposed to them. I mean, they just cannot sustain and maintain drives, so that probably increases that passing volume against them. And again, just to hammer the point, like McLaurin is so important to this offense, man. He's the only one who can win outside. He's the only one who can really beat man coverage. So he is definitely a guy, Joel, that I mean, I saw like all the jokes on Twitter as Terry McLaurin, was crushing it against the Denver Broncos. Like, congratulations to all the 10th place fantasy teams with Terry McLaurin, crushing it for them. Again, I will say, not to just keep talking about myself, but I picked up Terry McLaurin because he got dropped in one of my leagues, and I needed to get into needed him, and to get into like 4th place in a league and push for a playoff positioning, and he's helpful. So like, again, there are people out there who hopefully picked up McLaurin when others dropped him, because I think he's going to be a pretty nice play the rest of the way.
Yeah, I would say like low end wide receiver 2, and the big thing too, if you see it on the screen, fantasy championship, they play the Cowboys. Can't really ask for anything better.
No, definitely some really good spots there down the stretch for Terry McLaurin. Curious to where you're going with this next, not just player, but a group of players here potentially.
Yeah, just the Colts offense in general, getting lots of questions. What's happening with Jonathan Taylor, all that sort of stuff. A lot of it is just the unluckiness in the fantasy schedule. The first half of the season, his schedule was one of the best. Second half of the season, one of the worst. And sadly, bad news, it's kind of going to continue. He has 5 games this year against those top 8 defenses against running backs. So those top 8 defenses, he scores 13.7 points per game. Not really horrible, but it's not obviously what you want. He has that one blow-up game and then 4 games that were kind of not that great, 2 of them being the last 2 weeks. The other teams, bottom 24, or however you want to put it, the other 24 teams, 30 points per game. So he's amazing. But going forward, he's got Jacksonville, Seattle, San Fran, and then Jacksonville again. And surprisingly, Jacksonville, top 5 defense against running backs right now. Seattle's number 5 too. So Jacksonville has a little bit more hope because their defense as a whole is more close to the middle in terms of a scoring defense, and they're just in the red zone a bunch. He's going to get so many touches down there where should have lots of potential for scoring. In his career, has dominated the Jaguars for what it's worth. But Seattle, like, not the greatest matchup. I don't mind San Francisco, especially with how many injuries they've had on that defense, but not the greatest schedule going forward.
Man, I gotta shout out Boone again on this one. That like was 2 or 3 weeks ago. He kind of said like, is Jonathan Taylor sneaky the best sell high that you can make at the trade deadline? And obviously, like, you're selling as high as possible. And he mentioned some of these matchups, and when he said it, I was like, oh God, let me tell you what. Even if he is, I would never have the stones to do it. I'm too much of a coward. I would never be able to trade Jonathan Taylor, but he's been kind of right about this slowdown here. And as you pointed out, like it might continue here. And I come back to the Colts offense as a whole here. I don't think they're going to fall off the face of the earth, but if they level off from a historic pace, and they've kind of been from a points per drive perspective, they were at a historic pace. They've dipped down to like middle of the pack. Even if they level out somewhere between that, that's going to shave off the upside from all of these players here. And I do think JT is even susceptible to that as well.
Yeah, that's also number one ranker, Justin Boone, I've seen today in terms of the whole industry.
Yeah, shout
but I have
out,
a question.
baby.
Yeah, shout out. I have a question for you. How worried are you in terms of the Daniel Jones injury? Because that's the other thing. Quarterback, those last 2 games, horrible schedule. Going forward, more middle of the road. But that's what scares me is he's playing with a broken leg. Like, I don't know how he's doing it. But I'm a little bit worried. I don't know how that's going to like just affect the offense as a whole. But like, it scares me. It scares me.
The thing I think that's pretty tough about it is, one, if he's not able to, if he's a broken freaking leg, he's not able to really be a rushing threat. That takes away some of the venom from their RPOs, and that they're kind of using that at a good clip at the start of the season, which one is going to take away some of those easy button first down targets that Michael Pittman was just eating on to start the season. So like that's a problem. And then you get back into that kind of Gardner Minshew area where, you're using the RPOs. Nobody expects you to keep that ball. That was the case with Gardner Minshew when he was the starter a couple years ago. And then the second thing is too, they've gotten really conservative as a play calling unit with Jones banged up. They've been a very early down rushing team as opposed to throwing the ball a bunch on first down, which I think was keeping defenses on their toes. It was funneling like layup targets to Michael Pittman, where now I think they've become a little bit, Joel, like this. I don't think they're going to be bad, but I think they're going to go into some of these matchups and be a little bit more volatile because they've got to get more heavy drop back. They've got to be kind of in these rushing scripts. And I think this will lead to some more herky-jerky volatility of some of these guys where it might be like we saw last week. Pierce has the big game, but then Pittman does nothing. The week before against Kansas City, Pierce had 1 catch. Pittman and Downs got a bunch of targets. I think that's how this is going to go on a week-by-week basis.
Yeah, those are some incredible points. I love it. Like an incredible offense, but it is like limited now. So this changes things. Is it going to be that team that was scoring basically 40 points a game the rest of the season? Don't know.
Probably not. All right, let's stick with a team that is scoring some points, but might not make it into the actual NFL playoffs here.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Yeah, the buzz is building for the fantasy playoffs and Derek Stingley Jr. I feel like it's the Derek Stingley Jr. week, celebrating him against that Colts team last week, held Pittman to basically nothing, So this week, that's who the Chiefs have. Derek Stingley against Rasheed Rice and Xavier Worthy. And then just the playoff schedule. They get the Chargers. Tennessee's not bad. And then Denver week 17. It's not the greatest schedule for Mahomes and those receivers. So I've gotten lots of questions about Rice. I'm sure you've seen the stat of the week of him and JSN since he's returned, tied as that wide receiver 1 in fantasy. So Rice has been amazing. And I'm still not very worried for him when it comes to these tough matchups over the next 4 weeks. Lots of different reasons. One is 54% of his targets come out of the slot. So he'll be away of those top corners like a Surtain, like a Stingley, on over half of his targets anyways. Can't really be shadowed at as frequently. In terms of his other catches, how they use them, the design work, all of his short area targets, and how they use them at the goal line is all amazing and consistent. 3 design targets per game. Nobody else has 2. He's first in targets per game under those 5 yards downfield. So those short gamey targets in general at the line of scrimmage, all that sort of stuff. And everyone talks about how incredible Davante Adams has been at the goal line. His inside the 5 targets, barely above Rasheed Rice. And then no one is even close to those two. So Rasheed Rice, it's a shorter sample size, 7 games, something like that. But it's basically the same usage as Davante Adams has at the goal line. And it's why he's been so consistent. So it's a lot harder for him to be stopped by a matchup, but just because how they use them. Hurts Mahomes a little bit, kills Xavier Worthy, I think. He's been not that great, and the matchups are horrible. But for Rice, not too worried.
Yeah, you just sacrifice Xavier Worthy and you continue to pepper Rasheed Rice out of the slot, underneath, all that stuff. I mean, about like 60% of his usage is not even real wide receiver stuff. So he's just not a normal guy in terms of some of those shadow matchups or anything like that. But so that's a really good point for anybody. Because I know there are people who just look at the schedule and be like, oh my God, he's going to get this. That's a good point from you that from a coverage perspective, he's not going to end up facing Rasheed Rice, a lot of these top level corners in that way. Great transition here. Your final point, top level corner, Joel. Joel, I'm really excited to hear you talk about this player because I think fantasy football analysts might be the only people talking about this guy because the Bengals and their defense are so terrible. So let it rip on DJ Turner here.
DJ Turner, craziest stat of the week for you. I guess you see it on the screen now. But the Cincinnati defense against receivers this year, how many receivers would you guess have 20 receiving fantasy points or more in a game? This is PPR, by the way. So point per reception, just reaching 20 points, that ceiling game this season.
I mean, I would guess
would you have a
because
guess?
It's on the screen.
Yes, I haven't jacked, but I'm guessing they're the only team this year that has 0 games of a wide receiver in fantasy scoring 20 points on them in receiving, at least. DJ Moore and Marvin Mims, I think, both have, but that's because of rushing touchdowns or like DJ Moore at a passing touchdown against them.
Yeah.
Like ridiculous. And every single week I get asked, basically, at least in the second half of the season, why did blank do horrible against the Bengals? Why did blank do horrible against the Bengals? And basically every time it's been DJ Turner. He's been a great corner for them, this rising star, young guy, shadowing those receivers, snap to snap across the field. And what we've seen, DK Metcalf, 8 points. Adunze, 0 points. Metcalf again, 9.9. And then Flowers last week, he had the touchdown. That was probably not a penalty. But 0.6 points, even if he had that big touchdown, it'd be like 10 points. So he's been incredible. So what people think is like that dream matchup for that outside receivers, it's really not the greatest. And there's some interesting receivers going forward in the fantasy playoffs. For this week, they get the Bills. Doesn't really affect too much. But week 15, first round of the playoffs, it'll be Zay Flowers again. Week 16 is Jalen Waddle. And then that fantasy championship game, he's going to get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Really interesting schedule. Yeah, again, no one cares about the Bills, so that's fine. But from a receiver perspective, but yeah, I mean, and Jalen Waddle, I mean, he's the only game in town from a receiver perspective, so you know he's going to get him on like 80-something% of the routes here. Jalen Waddle, DJ Turner, Marvin Harrison. I'm at least interested to see, you know, how that Michael Wilson versus Marvin Harrison kind of goes. But Trey McBride's just going to catch 15 balls against that Bengals defense, because where you take from one, you give to the other. Receivers aren't having the big games, tight ends are having the big games. So go ahead and congratulate yourself. You have Trey McBride. You won your fantasy championship with this matchup in week 17. But that's great info, Joel. I really appreciate it. You just got to get there. But if you get there, if you got Trey McBride, you're in a really good spot. That's great info on DJ Turner, because like I said, I bet NFL fans are not realizing the season that he is having, but from a fantasy standpoint, we're certainly feeling the impact on that one. Joel, appreciate you as always, buddy. Great information here. Thanks again for stopping by. All right.
Yep.
That's going to do it from us today. Thanks again to Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season. And don't forget to check out Toyota Game Day giveaways for your chance to win. We're going to be back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, live with the number one ranker himself, Justin Boone. The return of the king will be here live, 5 p.m. live on YouTube. Come check us out. Be with us then. Until then, we are out.